welcome to Shelter at Home Cooking. I'm Philip Tallman, and we're going to attempt to make some healthy and delicious food for you and show you what you guys can do while you're sheltering at home. So the first issue is salsa and guacamole, and since they share a lot of the same ingredients, we're going to make them together. I tend to use my little KitchenAid food processor because it makes things go a little bit faster. I start out with some jalapeno peppers. This is my food processor here. The jalapeno peppers I have happen to be from last year's garden. I just throw a bunch of them in the freezer. I have 3 of them in here already. You just, of course, cut the stem off. And then for those of you who like hotter salsa and guacamole, you can leave the seeds in. For those that don't like it so hot, you can take your seeds out. And you just throw those in there, roughly chopped up. And I usually like to try to get those chopped up as small as possible first. So we'll give those a spin with the food processor. And then the next thing are onions. The onions I like to use are red onions. I like the flavor of red onions. I use them in just about everything I use onions in. And we're just gonna, again, roughly chop up the onions, and we'll throw those in. And give it a little bit of a pulse here. And then we have cilantro. Cilantro, again, is in both the salsa recipe as well as the guacamole. So we'll get that in. We don't want the cilantro quite as pureed up. And with the salsa, you could finish off the salsa in the food processor and just add tomatoes and some lime juice and some salt and run it, and you'd have more of a homogenized kind of a pureed salsa, which is delicious and really fast. I like my salsa more like a Pico de Gallo with a little bit chunkier tomatoes. So I like to chop up my tomatoes by hand. And when you're making salsa, it's helpful with the tomatoes. It's a little trick to use to make the salsa a little more flavorful, is to actually remove some of the seeds and the juices out of the tomatoes. So you can chop them into halves or quarters, and then you can just remove some of the seeds, and then just chop the tomatoes up into whatever size you like. I like them pretty small. So now we're going to finish up the salsa. You know, salsa can be made so many different ways, and there's a myriad of different ingredients that you can use to make salsa. This is just a really basic tomato salsa that I really like. I like to just sit down with a bowl of this and some chips and just eat the whole thing. But you can use it in all sorts of different Mexican cooking, in haystacks, taco salads, tostadas, tacos. But what we're gonna do now is we have our tomatoes that we've chopped up, and then we have our mixture of cilantro, onions, and jalapeno peppers. And we're gonna take, since this is gonna be for both our salsa and our guacamole, we're gonna take about half of this and add that to our salsa. And then the other ingredients that go in the salsa are limes. So we have our limes here. And I like to use this handy lime squeezer. Makes it very easy to get our lime juice in there. And quantities, you know, when I first started cooking, I was all about it. I didn't know exactly how much everything required. And as you cook and you learn over time, a lot of things aren't that important in terms of having the exact amount. Certain things are, like in the guacamole, when we get to that, you can ruin a batch of guacamole with too much salt or too much garlic salt. But in general, You know, some people like more limes, some people like less limes. I tend to like a lot of lime juice, but you know, you can make it with about the amount that you think it takes, and then you can taste it. And then you can add more, and if you make a mistake, then you've learned for next time. But the next thing the salsa requires is some salt, and we're gonna use about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then we put our lime juice in there already, and we have our mixture of cilantro, onions, and peppers. And then you give it a good mix. And salsa tends to get better as it sits. Guacamole does too. The flavors mix, gets to tasting better. And so you just mix it up and then you set it aside. And that is it for the salsa. So now we're going to do the guacamole. And again, we have a lot of the stuff already made up. You know, this is a good opportunity to say something about plant-based eating. You know, it's so interesting, people who, like myself, who try to eat vegan, plant-based food. There's always so many questions about, well, what do you eat? You know, by people who eat meat. And there's just so much variety out there and so many great flavors that you can't ever run out of different variety, even when you're not eating meat, you're just sticking to plants. And you know, the Lord knew, you know, that we had variety. We have, as people, various appetites and various tastes and desires, and He created a myriad of different flavors, different fruits and vegetables, and beans and grains, and it's just so much, so many wonderful things that we can eat and experiment with and taste, and really the God's design for us, for the healthiest diet for us, was the diet He gave to Adam and Eve in Eden, and that was a plant-based diet. And so we're going to take advantage of some of those wonderful things that were created for us, and finish this guacamole. So we have avocados, of course, the main ingredient of guacamole, and avocados are just really healthy for you. There was a study out not long ago that showed that eating an avocado every day actually lengthened your life. So the good fats in avocado are great for us, and really tasty too. So we have our avocados in the bowl here. I happen to have these small avocados that we got at a roadside stand that was actually open, even with the shelter at home. So we got these little guys, which are great. They have a great flavor, a little bit smaller, so a little more work to get them peeled and in the bowl, but they have a smaller pit, so you get a fair amount of avocado out of each one of them. And then I use my potato masher to mash the avocados up. Okay. And then, of course, we add our previously chopped up onions, cilantro, and jalapeno peppers into our avocado. Just gives a really great flavor with that combination of all three of those flavors together. And then I just really love the fresh taste of the lime that we add to that. And I tend to go a little bit heavy on the lime juice. Some people don't like it like that much, and that's the great thing about cooking. When you're the cook, you can cook things the way you like it. And if others don't like it, then it's just more for you. And so here's some lime juice. I'm going to use 2 full limes in our guacamole here. And of course, there's a lot of health benefits to the citrus. A lot of good fiber in the onions and the avocado, and peppers and cilantro, And then along with that, throw on some garlic salt. You notice that in the salsa, I didn't use garlic. You can use garlic in salsa. I just like the taste of the peppers and the onions and the tomatoes, so I don't use a lot of garlic in my salsa. But in the guacamole, the garlic and the garlic salt. And you can use fresh garlic as well, but it's just quick and easy to throw in some garlic salt, because then you get your garlic flavor and your salt in one ingredient. And then we just mix all of this together. And like the salsa, the guacamole gets to tasting a little bit better the longer it sits. Flavors mix, and it's nice to actually, if you can make it ahead of time and stick it in the refrigerator for an hour or so, and then when you're ready to use it, it has some great flavor to it. But it's always good before you do that to taste it and find out if you've added enough garlic salt, enough lime. Those are the two things I will often add a little bit more of after initially making it, to get it to the taste that I like it. All right, so there's our guacamole. So that was it, very simple. We have some wonderful, very fresh and tasty salsa and some guacamole. So we're gonna try the salsa out. Excellent, if I do say so myself. And try the guacamole. Really, really good. And remember, with this shelter at home and all this anxiety and fear that everybody's going through right now, that really Jesus is our rock. Jesus has offered us life. He has overcome this world. There's nothing to fear. He has offered us the peace that only heaven can give, not peace that comes from this earth. And so look to Jesus. Be faithful to him. Be focused on him. Don't focus on watching the news 24 hours a day and getting fearful, but just rely on Jesus and know that he has overcome this world. He has taken care of everything, and we have nothing to fear. So enjoy some food and praise the Lord.